4 seconds, another bank shot. It's loose. Denver has won the national championship for the 8th time.
I like this. I like this. I like this.
This is Sports Nerds podcast offering critical conversations on sports, occasional irreverent jokes, and consistently attempting to make sports not fun for our listeners and whoever else they recommend the show to. So we are your hosts, Dr. Samuel J. and
Brian Schrader. Hello.
Dr. Brian Schrader.
Dr. Brian Schrader.
Dr. Brian Schrader. Don't sell yourself short, Brian. You did it. You finished. You can find us and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. If you just search Sports Nerds, it's pretty easy to find us. The more folks who download us and give us ratings, the better chance that those platforms will populate our results when people just search for sports and academics and all of that. So we do ask that you do that for us. You can also follow us on Facebook. If you just type in at Sports Nerds, so it's just facebook.com/sportsnerds is another way to do it. You can also subscribe to our show on YouTube. So we have made this easy. What's up?
I said please.
Please, yeah. Sorry, please, yeah. I'll let you.
I wasn't correcting your.
No.
I
was
being encouraging.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, please do this, right? And Brian is completely right to beg. We're begging a little bit. I'm
imploring.
Exactly. And we've made it super easy for you. Okay, so what you do is you go to our Facebook page, go to the left-hand side, and we've made a button that says YouTube. And you click on that, it will allow you to watch our episodes, okay, just through Facebook. You can watch them, and then there's also a little button there that says subscribe. So you don't have to go to YouTube. You can just go to our Facebook page and via the YouTube tab that's on the left, or YouTube button, I guess, watch through Facebook and rate us, or not rate us, excuse me, subscribe to us. So to make this a little bit more compelling, right, to implore you a little more, right, more aggressively, as Brian highlighted, we're doing a little promotion. So if you subscribe to our page, we will send you a custom Sports Nerds koozie.
Hey-o.
Can koozie. Hi-yo, yes. Please just email us at wearesportsnerds@gmail.com to let us know when you subscribe, because unless you give YouTube permission basically to send us an email saying that you have subscribed, and that's only about half of the 60 subscribers we have so far have we received emails, but folks have texted Brian and I and said, hey, we subscribed. But just please do that. If you subscribe, send us an email and let us know that you did subscribe, so that way we can make sure to get you that koozie once we get our custom URL established for YouTube, which is one of the reasons we need 100 subscribers as soon as possible. We're going to be able to put that on the koozie and send it out your way, along with maybe some, I don't know. So we'll figure out a funny image or something to put on the can koozie, so that way you can think of Brian and I every time you're having a nice cold beer. But that would be great.
You could put a beer in your koozie and listen to the podcast and just full circle.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything more that you would want this summer while having a nice cold beer than just Brian and I staring at you? Exactly. See, silence.
I'm laughing.
Nobody.
You got to go to YouTube to see the expression on my face.
Yes.
Radio
exactly.
and the podcasting forum the format doesn't bring you everything. Sometimes you got to go watch the video to see me laughing at Sam's jokes or rolling my eyes. He doesn't know.
Or there's been a lot of eye rolling. I noticed that last week for good reason. I think we're trying. Brian and I are trying to really up the production value of the show. And so those first 2 episodes on YouTube, I know they weren't that awesome, but I have spent the last 5-6 hours, or not the free 5-6 hours that I've had trying to watch some tutorials on how to use Adobe Premiere more effectively. Because I learned that when I was an undergrad. No, that's okay. Well, I was skiing, and then I had a birthday party. So
skiing's better than watching the match.
It was okay. There was a lot of snow up there yesterday. I took my daughter and we went skiing, and it was good though. It was good. There was no traffic. But before we jump into the show, Brian and I do have something super exciting to announce, other than the badass koozies and the YouTube page.
Are you going to tell us what happened on Homeland last night?
No, I didn't watch it yet.
Oh,
Fell asleep.
If you said there's something really important, then it must be Sunday night cable premiere. Programming. Sorry.
No, you're good. Hey,
I was waiting for that joke. I was ready for it.
Our fans appreciate this banter. This is why they come to us every week for their in-depth sports conversations.
Come for the banter, stay for the sports analysis.
Ooh, I like. Ooh, see, that's good. There's our new motto. Got to write that down.
Yeah.
Beginning of May. Beginning of May, Brian and I are really, really excited to announce that Sean Foreman will be joining the show. Sean Foreman is the founder of Baseball Reference and the current president of Sports Reference. Most notably, he's also a University of Iowa alum, so it's technically Dr. Sean Foreman. But for those of you who aren't aware, basically Baseball Reference sends out, I think it's a every morning they send kind of extensive stats to Major League Baseball organizations, and they have proprietary rights to all of these advanced kind of statistics that they run and create. So not only is it the go-to for baseball nerds such as Brian and I, but Baseball Reference is the go-to for scouts, for general management, probably for managers and all of this. I was actually talking to a buddy of mine here on campus who was a former scout and his father is still a scout, saying that, yeah, this is, in the mornings, Baseball Reference sends out these reports and this is what teams go to, which is, I thought, pretty fascinating. So we'll have Sean on the show to discuss baseball with us. If you have questions that you want to ask, and I know that I do, including should the Cubs trade Kyle Schwarber for a 1 or 2, and send them our way, and we'll make sure that they get asked. So anything that you want to ask Sean, he is Brian and I in terms of baseball guru times 1,000. So it should be a good conversation. Are you excited, Bri?
Yeah, I was going to say we may not even be smart enough to ask him questions. We may just have to be like,
no,
talk to us about stats and stuff.
Yeah, I mean he's got his PhD, I think, in mathematics. So it's pretty crazy though. It's funny how things turn out the way they do, right? Just
you can title the episode like "Show Your Work."
Yes, exactly. Oh, show your work, right? Don't just go to the back and write down the answers.
Yes, that's why the teachers assign only the even questions, right? Oh man.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes. So we got that coming to May. So stay tuned. I'm hoping that it goes so well we get 2 episodes out of it, kind of like we did with Chinjirai. And I would not be surprised, depending on how much time Sean has. But I was telling Brian, Sean responded to my email, within, I don't want to say minutes, but, within an hour, he was on board. So I think baseball nerds just like talking to other baseball nerds. So it should be fun. So that'll be beginning of May. We'll keep you posted on it.
A positive feedback loop. If you spend time subscribing to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, we get bigger, we get better guests, etc. So, there's a sense in which you're the master of your own destiny here, people.
Yeah. You don't just have to listen to us talk the whole time.
Yeah, precisely. So,
there you go. Yeah, that's nice. Oh, man, that's the way to pay it forward. So to open up the show, Brian and I had a pretty big weekend in the sense that our alma mater won a national title. Huh?
Yeah.
How about that, guy?
Go Pios.
So that's we'll talk about that first, and then we want to, I should give the rundown for people. We'll talk about DU, then we're going to talk about real quick update on the U.S. women's soccer labor deal, and then I think we're going to spend the bulk of our remaining kind of 30 minutes here talking about the idea that ESPN is moving militantly towards the political left. But first and foremost, Brian, did you watch that game? Did you watch DU and UM Duluth?
Yeah, of course. It was tough to stay up. I mean, not because the game was interesting. It was just late and I was tired. And it was, I'll be honest. The semifinal game against Notre Dame was more fun to watch. But yeah, of course I watched that. It was great.
That wasn't even, it was 3-2, but it wasn't much of a game.
No.
I mean, I understand that the score was close, but I feel like DU kind of, they had the Bulldogs by the throat there.
That game could
for
have
the
been
majority of the game.
Yeah, 3 or 4 or 5-0 early on. I mean, that being said, Duluth stays in that game. And I think DU did look a little tired at the end, or I'm not enough of a hockey expert to say if they were tired or if they were just kind of playing in a defensive shell, right? Perhaps they were like 7 minutes left. Let's just, don't take any chances here. Let's not get countered. See if we can win.
I had a conversation. Actually, there was one of I don't want to cut you off just because that's a good point, one of our listeners and one of my former students had tweeted about this. Right, DU looks tired, but I think you nailed it on the head there. Right, they'd kind of moved into more of a defensive shell. When you get to that point in the game, right, the other team is pressing so much that they're more apt to make mistakes, and so I mean you don't have to necessarily be aggressive, but you can capitalize on their mistakes. So yeah, I think that's a good observation.
I mean, the other thing I'll say too is that I mean I'm sure Minnesota Duluth watched the way that DU just demolished Notre Dame, and I mean they were just the DU is just a fast hockey team. Barry Melrose said it a million times. They're so fast, and Notre Dame never seemed to just make the game super physical. And Minnesota Duluth came out just hitting real hard. I mean, we saw a handful of real rough hits, and that's what you got to do against a team that's a lot faster than you, right? Is just play real physical and see if you can kind of make them work and make you think twice about going into the boards to dig out a puck, that sort of thing. So I think their strategy was correct. But man, that team is fast, and they passed the puck like crazy. So good for them. Congrats.
Man,
yeah, I mean,
they were just crazy talented. Just watching them throughout the season, my God.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, when I was in Denver, you could see them. They were on local cable in Denver, so I used to watch a lot of it. Out here, the only televised games were random ones if they played a Big Ten team on the Big Ten Network, or the semifinal and the final. So it was nice to get to see them again. And I mean, this is a team that went through some stuff. They had won back-to-back championships in 04 and 05. They had a real big name coach, and had gotten close a handful of other times, making it into the Frozen Four 2 or 3 times, I think. But he got fired and replaced, and the new coach, whose name is escaping me, I mean, he really kind of built that team. Montgomery, there you go. He really built that team back up.
Yeah.
They've been getting better and better every year. I mean, last year in the semifinals, they lose to a really good North Dakota team. I mean, they were in that game as well. I mean, it was clear that North Dakota was a little bit of a better hockey team, but they came back. I mean, they're poised to be a good a force to be reckoned with for the next couple of years, which is nice. DU, for those who don't know, it doesn't have a big D1 football program, but hockey and lacrosse, they're really, really good. So exciting time to cheer for the Pios for sure. For a small school is another thing people probably don't know. 5,000 undergrads, it's not very big.
No, but
you're right. Their basketball team isn't terrible. I don't know if they're ever going to compete for a national championship,
or even make the tournament. But someday, I hope. Someday. No, hockey is massive at DU. I mean,
hockey's their football.
Huge. Yes. No, that was great. I mean, I think what Montgomery has been able to do is, he came from the minor league hockey ranks, I guess. Ranks, yeah. Being able to bring in kind of NHL talent to the college game. And I'm not sure, I wrote this down for us to discuss a little bit today, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. Because a lot of people think that college hockey it's worse than minor league hockey, right? It's like, oh, if you couldn't get a contract signed when you were 17 or 18 years old, you go and play college hockey. But that's just not the case. I think what happens is a lot of kids, especially those in the northern states and in Canada, they get poached by professional teams. And, when you're 16 years old, you're going to have to sign this contract and you're going to spend 4 or 5 years in the minor leagues just, working the grind, man. And it's not the best experience. I talked for a long time with DU's former assistant coach on this, and because I wanted some clarification, right, about what's the difference between college hockey and minor league professional hockey. And I think it comes down to those scouts and those, I guess the scouts for the teams in Canada were just able to make a sell, right? They could sell playing in the minors for 5-6 years and not going and getting a college education, and that was a better route. And I think what you're beginning to see, not just with DU, right, but I think NHL teams are starting to acknowledge this as well, as you're getting more guys from college that are playing NHL hockey. I don't know if anybody was aware of this, but last year the Penguins set the record that they set the record for most college players ever on a Stanley Cup winning team. I think it was 9 or 10, right? That's a big number, right? Especially considering the number of European hockey players on given teams, or the number of Canadian hockey players on given teams. And so I think what Montgomery has been able to do is recruit guys saying, look, there's a good chance, right? You spend 4 or 5 years in the minors. Why don't you come here, get a great education, and then go off and play NHL hockey? And I think it's worked here, right? I mean, DU had the the top goalie in the in college hockey. The top player, arguably, I'm not sure that Will Butcher is really the best player, but definitely the best defenseman in college hockey. And the freshman kid they got, I can't think of his where he's from, but Bergstrom. He's Scandinavian of some descent.
Actually, I think they
sort,
joked about that in the game, that it sounds Scandinavian, but he's from Minnesota.
Is he really? Oh, okay.
I think they said he's an American kid. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. Or Finland. I'll look it up. Anyhow, I think he had 20 goals this year, and he was a first-round draft pick by the Lightning, I want to say, last year. So, I mean, the talent, you're starting to see it, and as Brian pointed out earlier, right, watching DU this year is just different from previous years. And I like to think I've watched a lot of DU hockey, when I was working as a grad assistant there, having to go to a lot of games every year. And I can't say that I've seen a team this fast in the 7 years that I've been here. There's NHL talent on that team. They're so fast. So congrats to DU. Congrats to our alma mater, right? Now, not only do they have a podcast created by two of their alum, but now they have another national title. So make it number 8.
I think equally are important to the university.
Yeah. Right? Yes. Yeah, you'll see a banner with our faces in Magnus Arena. Oh, all right. So, Brian, did you want to take a second? And you probably know a hell of a lot more about this than I do. The U.S. women's soccer team just signed a new labor agreement. Did you look into the specifics of it at all?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't go read the agreement or anything like that, but it looks like the main thing that they get is better pay, right? So not all the players, but a lot of their incomes are going to go up into the $200,000 and $300,000 range. It says some little stuff like their travel arrangements and accommodations. I'd say little stuff. It's probably little stuff to us, but on the outside looking in, it seems like not that important things. But if you're traveling a lot internationally, having nice travel arrangements and accommodations, flying first class and having a per diem, that sort of stuff is probably pretty nice for them. And it's got some working condition stuff built into it. And I was trying to figure out if this explicitly covers the stuff that we talked about last week, whether or not they can make sure they're playing on grass fields as opposed to turf fields. But I imagine that's, if it's not explicit, it's sort of baked into the working conditions thing, because that was a major problem for them during that last World Cup.
I cannot find the specifics of the contract, and I looked, for a while this morning, and I don't know if it's just because it's not released yet, but I wish I could answer that question for you. Have you found the specifics?
No, I've read articles about it, but I didn't try and read the actual.
Yeah.
Here, the deal with U.S. Soccer. Maybe this will actually open it.
I have read from a few different outlets that their approach was unique, right? So if we're going to talk about this in terms of rhetorical theory and social movement theory, they tried to basically just chip away at that previous contract piece by piece by piece. And so I thought it was very interesting that the players that would go in and be part of the negotiations basically had practiced. They had a bit of a script, and so they would want to change not these huge issues. They wanted to change the huge issues, but they realized rather than arguing, okay, we need to minimize the pay gap, they would instead look at maybe some of the language of the contract and go after that, right? I need you to change this word. I need you to do these things, right? Or like you're saying, right? No, we want to be able to fly first class, or we want to stay at these kind of hotels, and kind of taking that approach and doing it piecemeal in this particular case worked really, really well, right? That was really, good negotiation. So you don't always see that in social movements. There's always this kind of huge goal, not always, there's often this huge goal that wants to be met, and it's oftentimes hard to meet that huge goal. And so this strategy of just kind of picking it apart piece by piece did work for U.S. women's soccer. So congrats to them. Right, I think last week when we talked about the women's hockey team as well, that's fantastic. That's great news. Great news.
Yeah, it is worth saying though, in some of the things that I've read too, that like this thing, there are places where you could say this thing falls short, right? That they're not getting paid as much as the men. It looks like the way the payouts are going to work create opportunities for them to make more money, bonuses for winning championships. They can make more money in World Cup years. There's caveats for being able to renegotiate at different points during the 5-year CBA. But it's still kind of what we said last week about that women's hockey successful boycott, right? Like, step in the right direction, absolutely. Has this solved the problem of inequities in sports for women? No, not at all. And I think it just important head nod.
I was shocked,
particularly for a team that's been ranked world #1 for how many months, years?
Long time.
They make a lot of money.
I was shocked.
They make a lot of money. There's no reason.
I was shocked and equally frustrated by the responses to last week's podcast, talking about women's hockey. Not by our devoted listeners per se, but I think by some of the folks within academia that I work with, that not necessarily that you work with, but students. The idea that, and I think this is an argument that is repeated outside of our spheres, which is that these women don't deserve equal pay because they don't generate the ad revenue, or people just don't care to watch, or the talent isn't that good, right? And I think, man, I heard that so many times last week after people had listened to our episode, and I just thought how narrow-minded and ignorant that is, right? I mean,
yeah. This is the argument that I was bumbling through last week that I just wasn't making well, which is that assumes a neutral starting point. Or here's a better way.
Right, that's just
that assumes that some sports are objectively better, right, than other sports. Like, so if you get down to this, like I had a moment in my class where we sort of talked about this after we did the podcast last week in my history of rhetoric class, and the discussion was, what one of the people in my class kind of said, well, look, watching men play basketball is more fun because they can dunk and they have more dynamic athleticism that you can witness, and that's the reason that people prefer watching men's basketball. And I said, for the sake of argument, let's assume that's true. I'm not sure that's true. Why is that the criteria for whether or not it's a better sport, right? That in and of itself is both subjective and a discursive construction, right?
Yeah, that's just it, right?
But we make these arguments as though it's objective. Yeah, we make these arguments as though it's objective. Like, you can imagine a world where a butterfly effect sort of thing, where instead of basketball being the sport that people really like, or football or baseball or whatever, that it's something else, right? Had things gone differently, maybe we're a rugby playing country, right? And the contingent nature of the sports that we find entertaining or interesting, even though we want to say no, these things are intrinsic to our very culture. Baseball's the American pastime, blah blah blah, that bullshit. Like, none of that's true. Had World War II gone differently, maybe we're watching something else. Does that argument sort of make sense? Like, we see these things as uniquely tied to our culture, and there's a sense in which they are, right? But it's not objectively true or objectively true or logically necessary that they are. It's just kind of through happenstance that they come to be that way.
Our tastes.
The point of this argument is that
our tastes are constructed, right? They're discursive.
Yes, our taste is constructed. The point of this argument is, don't say men's basketball is objectively more fun to watch than women's basketball. That's not true. There's reasons that you think that are beyond your control, right? And we talked about this last week. It's advertising. It's the season in which they play. It's marketing. It's all of these different things, and we can be critical of those and say, I'm being kind of fed a diet of these sports are the best and the most fun to watch, and these other ones are worse and not as fun to watch.
Right.
When those things are not, again, I keep saying true and objectively true, but I guess that's what I mean. They're not. Those are constructions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, the idea. Another good example. I know you've provided plenty here, but the idea that polo is extremely popular, right, in certain parts of the world, right? Like,
no, that's just stupid.
I know, right? Or talk about, but like the athleticism of a polo player as compared to, I don't know, some other sport. But my point is just this stuff is really dependent upon cultures, dependent upon location. It's dependent upon the words and the language that we use to kind of create value, and then the products that either affirm that value or challenge it. And so the fact that somehow women's soccer is not considered in this country as entertaining as men as the NFL is a complete construction, right? There are parts and places in the world where that just wouldn't be the case, and so that's what we're kind of highlighting here, right? This taste is manufactured.
If that was true, then if you're out there listening and you think that's true, that men are more athletic and therefore their sports are more interesting to watch, then explain tennis to me, right? Women's tennis is massive.
Yes. It's a great example, right? Massive across Europe as well, not just here. So
yeah, and the reason for that is that it's men's and women's tennis. Again, there's an equity problem there. 3 sets versus 5 sets, how much they get paid, etc. But compared to women's soccer in the United States, which is that league is the NWSL, the Women's Professional Soccer League, has made it longer than any other women's professional league in the United States, which is awesome, and they have a great product on the field. But if you compare women's tennis and the way that it's marketed and the way, and this is important to point out too, like maybe the success of women's tennis has a lot to do with the fact that it's paired with men's tennis, so it kind of got brought up with men's tennis. But my point is, it gets either intentionally or unintentionally benefits from all of the same marketing that does men's tennis, and so we see those sports as, generally speaking, equal, right?
It would be interesting to
men's
see
versus women's basketball. You don't see that.
I'd be interested in looking at kind of ratings now, women's tennis now as compared to maybe 25 years ago. Like how much of it has to do men's and women's tennis, how much of it has to do with having an American who's dominant. Right, because I know that men's tennis, right, when we were kids in the 90s was huge. I don't know if it was more popular then than it is now, but here in the States, because you have Agassi and Sampras, right? That they're always in these.
You got the Roddick sort of bump a little bit.
Yeah, true. But now, now it's at a time maybe that U.S. women's tennis players, U.S. women tennis players were not as dominant. But I don't know. That's just another kind of element to throw in there. But we have some time that I wanted to dedicate to this idea that ESPN is becoming more liberal, which is not something that is novel. It is something that I feel like I've just come across over and over again. I feel like, where did I read it? Wasn't it in that Slate article that you sent me?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, talking about Fox Sports' response to ESPN, trying to be a more conservative outlet and all of this. And so we do want to talk about this today, but the reason why is there was an article in The Guardian that came out over the weekend. Has U.S. sports media really become a left-wing propaganda tool? And that article, or I suppose that Jack Moore's kind of an op-ed response, or op-ed comes in response to Clay Travis's Outkick the Coverage blog, which is just ESPN moves left wing so a CEO can run for president. I hate Clay Travis. He is such a fucking turd. But he is, man. I don't like Clay Travis at all. I never have. He's an SEC homer. He's a spare. His writing is really shitty, by the way. I read this it was the first time I've read a Clay Travis blog. I usually just watch him and his face on television. But I just think it's a ridiculous argument to make because ESPN is part of the Disney Corporation. How in the hell can a corporation that massive have kind of systemic liberal leanings? I guess maybe that's a stupid thing to think about, but when people say this shit, they just don't even think about the political benefits of conservatism, right? Or of economic conservatism that, Disney has, that ESPN has. So to come out and say that, Disney's CEO is making ESPN into this liberal machine, it's just dumb. It's just dumb. And it makes me angry to read this, but Your take, your go.
Yeah, I mean, my initial response is that that's pretty. I mean, you're describing ESPN as this one sort of big thing
Yeah.
when it serves a lot of different functions, right? It's got sort of its Sports Center and Sports Center esque programs that are basically just like here's scores, here's storylines, here's headlines with not a ton of analysis, right? They're operating kind of like your evening news, but only focusing on sports. So I'm not sure there's a ton of liberal bias there, I suppose. But it does also have, a bunch of shows that are designed to be sort of, I don't know that they're all shock jock-y, but they're kind of like, they're opinion shows where you've got people who are, either former players or lots of former coaches, and then just sort of hosts dissecting issues and sort of giving their takes on them. But they're sort of presented as people editorializing. Does that make sense? Like, and if they're presented in that context, I guess some of them might be liberal, some of them might be conservative. They're almost always presented in the form of disagreement, though, right? A lot of these shows try and retain the competitive atmosphere of sports in the way that they do sports news. So it's, now it's Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith arguing over headlines in sports, or that's I imagine that's what Skip and Shannon show looks like, though I've never seen it on Fox Sport 1. So I guess I don't see it. Maybe that's because, listen, I work in the university system, which is just there to brainwash unsuspecting teens into the liberal system as well. So I don't know. What do you think?
I just, I guess the evidence that Clay Travis presents is, really weak. And I think not just Travis, but other folks who have made this argument. It was brought up in that Slate article that you sent me, but the evidence of, so that he uses the example of celebrating Michael Sam for coming out of the closet, right, or giving Caitlyn Jenner the Lifetime Achievement Award at the ESPYS, or whatever that award was, the Courage Award.
Yeah,
Like, that's
the Arthur Ashe Courage Award.
The Arthur Ashe Courage Award, and so he, like, these two. And Colin Kaepernick like he's some sort of modern day Rosa Parks. It's just okay. First off, right? If you
just sounds like this dude might be racist.
I think he is.
By the way, for like all libel and slander laws, I said seems like he might be. That's enough, right? I'm not calling him a racist.
Good. You're not calling him a racist, right? What's he gonna do? Sue us for the money we don't have?
Gotta put it there. We'll send you a beer koozie.
I can get on board with the Caitlyn Jenner thing, but not with the. I think the ESPN was probably taking advantage of the hype around Caitlyn Jenner becoming a woman.
Well, that's a criticism that we've made on this podcast a bunch. That sports are all about money, not about feelings, and not about
Michael Sam
sports and tradition.
Like Michael Sam, I don't know. I mean, having sat down and actually talked to the guy a year ago. I mean, that took a lot of bravery to come out and announce that he was gay right before the draft, right? And I think what's interesting is he said he regretted doing that because he think it hurt his draft stock. So, I mean, I don't know that ESPN made a huge deal of that, or more so than any other outlet, right? Or Colin Kaepernick, like he's some sort of modern day Rosa Parks. It's like, if you read the interviews with, who's Michigan's coach now? Jim Harbaugh and Chip Kelly, right? They both had said that Kaepernick tried to make this whole thing not into a circus at all, right? He worked really hard to, continue these lines of communication with his teammates and all of this stuff. And so I feel like Travis's reading of this is how it feels to me, is a Fox News reading. Right, this is the kind of bullshit that Fox News would put up, and it's just not even-handed. Okay, it's not even-handed, and man, I guess I sound like a bleeding heart liberal right now, but in a lot of ways I am, and I just think that's so ignorant. I think a really good critique of Travis's piece and any other kind of conservative pieces on this topic, can be found in that Guardian article in which I think the author Jack points out that, he asks the question, right? Is ESPN becoming more liberal, or are we just basically showing the upper or middle to upper class white male establishment that sports are not these kind of apolitical venues for just entertainment, right? They're loaded with power dynamics and inequality and all of this. And as we begin to have these conversations that didn't start with ESPN, I mean, these are conversations that started in the late 60s, early 70s about inequality. It's not as fun for these people to watch anymore, right? It sullies their product because they don't want to have to think about this. They want to be mindless consumers of sports. And that's just not the case, right? I mean, folks that we write with, our friends, they do the same thing in their academic writing. I consider what Butterworth has written about, right? He ruined it. Unless you're a diehard baseball fan, you could say that he's ruining baseball in a lot of ways, right? If you were to imagine having people read Butterworth's article on the national anthem after 9/11 and that whole baseball nostalgia thing and everything, people would be pissed off.
No, I taught a lot of Butterworth stuff when I taught. I did a sports section in a pop culture class, and people's reaction was very, very viscerally negative.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me more about this. I want to hear this.
No, I mean, they read he wrote an article about the kicker, the female kicker at CU, Katie Hinda. I had him read that article. I had him read the baseball national anthem article, and they're just like the reaction you just described. They're like, no. You're reading too much into it. Was kind of their reaction, right? This is about sports. This isn't about all these political things. Was the response? And truthfully, I thought the response would be different. I thought they'd be like, wow, that's interesting. I never thought about it that way. But it's not. But again, that's just my liberal indoctrination project in the classroom.
Right.
LOL. Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I don't know. Listen, maybe if my leanings are left, I can't notice ESPN's liberal agenda, but I don't know what the alternative is, right? So, I mean, I'm kind of reviewing this Slate article, even though I'm the one who sent it to you, seeing what this guy had to say about Kaepernick and what he had to say about Michael Sam and that sort of stuff, and like there were multiple viewpoints on ESPN about Michael Sam. Like they had conversations, like you just mentioned. Did it help him or hurt him to come out? Does it matter for playing football? I mean, you got opinions on both sides. Is this dude's argument that there was like they were too left leaning? More people were like good for him than being like, no, you shouldn't mix your sexual politics with your profession or something like that? Or does he just think that ESPN is the example that he gives is Whitlock, who comes out and is like, you should have never done it. He just ended up without a job.
Jason Whitlock, the guy that's you should pull up your pants and act like a grown up. Like he's the black guy that would say thug, right? Like that's you know what I mean? Like that's a veiled racist term. But Jason Whitlock would be the guy that'd be like, oh, he's a thug.
I mean, that was kind of my reaction to all of this. Is this just coded racism?
I think so.
Like I think people's reaction to ESPN could be negative because it has way more people of color on it, way more women on it than does average television.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if that's left leaning, I guess I'm down. Maybe fine. Yeah. Maybe my reaction is sure, fine, whatever. And by the way, if people are so pissed about it, then why are they watching ESPN and not Fox Sports 1?
Because it's just shit programming. I mean, it's all you pointed out something really strong at the beginning of this segment, which was that ESPN airs SportsCenter. It's hard to really inject a lot of ideological content in SportsCenter, like overt ideological.
I think their goal is to not. I think they're like, here's
it's not. I mean,
the
it's
top
like
plays, here's the top lines.
That's what they are. Just because you have some, First Take or whatever those shows are, right, with people arguing about this stuff, that's on in the middle of the day anyway, right? Like, who's watching that stuff? And so Clay Travis's argument that ESPN's programming alienates at least 75% of its core sports audience. How? And here's this, right? And contributes to a continuing ratings slide. Like
because liberals are communists who like soccer, not real soccer.
Find me an industry professional, seriously. Find me somebody who knows more about this shit, way more about it than you and I, right? Somebody who does mass comm studies. That's going to tell you the reason why ESPN's losing viewers is because it's going to the left. No, it's losing viewers because nobody wants to pay for cable anymore, right? It's a hell of a lot cheaper to stream it illegally online or to borrow, I can borrow your login, right,
Which
and
would
do it that
never
way.
happen.
No, it would never happen. Right? We'd never do that. But like the point is, that's not why ESPN's ratings are failing. Okay, that they're probably not. First and foremost, I think ESPN. There was I should send you this thing. I thought I did initially. Right, it was a Fortune. Maybe it was a Fortune article. Right, talking about ESPN's doing just fine. Right, I mean live sports are doing just fine. ESPN has live sports. It's not going away. So this, I guess, to sum up what I just said, right, for the last 2 minutes, Clay Travis is an idiot. So that's it. There. I just, oh my God. See, this is the kind of shit that gets sports a bad name. This is the kind of shit that makes sports irrelevant within academia. Is stuff like this. Clay Travis, Skip Bayless, right? Hell, I would even argue the left-leaning folks on ESPN, right? You're just yelling at each other, and you're not substantiating any of your claims with good evidence. Like, take a minute, Clay, and really, flesh out your idea that ESPN alienates 75% of its core sports audience with this content. Because I just don't. How, right? Shit, who the hell watches that crap television in the morning anyway?
Here's another article that says that ESPN's agenda-driven.
Who says that? What's this? Are you getting it from Breitbart?
jmedia.com. I don't know what this is.
Oh, okay.
Jeff Reynolds.
Thanks, Jeff Reynolds.
It says there's 3 reasons why ESPN's ratings are tanking. It's because cord cutting, because their programming is not good, and then it says agenda-driven programming with a big picture of Caitlyn Jenner. So I imagine it's a similar argument.
I mean,
the brass at ESPN has taken a decidedly leftward track in its programming. They either deny that it's happening or deny that there's anything wrong with expressing tolerance and diversity. But gone are the days when ESPN kept politics out of its programming and deliberately avoided alienating half of its audience. Yeah, he's making the exact same argument. Oh, says my computer's going to restart in 59 seconds. Don't do that.
We only have a few minutes left, so you're okay.
Well, you almost had a few seconds left. I delayed it. Yeah, I won't read this article to you. Apparently, there's a lot of people who think this. Man, maybe I have to, do some deep reflection on the.
Maybe it is veiled racism, right? Maybe it's veiled. Maybe ESPN's getting too black, right?
No, I mean that article. I didn't read the whole thing, but that first paragraph said the problem is that they talk about political issues in sports. Talking about political issues in sports is a bad idea. No. This is a pretty.
Dave Zirin made a career out of this.
This is a pretty easy argument to make that having a taboo about political issues in sports is the equivalent of other taboos that you've seen in this country, right? In the 1980s, it was taboo to talk about HIV and AIDS. That resulted in an explosion of the AIDS epidemic, right? It was taboo to come out as a gay or a lesbian person, which increased suicide rates, right? Like, this is a stupid argument to say that you shouldn't talk about pressing political issues inside of sports because they're inside of sports. The equivalent of this would be saying, don't talk about workplace discrimination in your workplace because it's a workplace. Well, of course you would, right? If you're not getting paid as much as somebody else because you're a woman or because you're a person of color, and they'd be like, listen, this is not really the right place for you to voice your political opinions, because we're in the... Shut up. Get out of here. That's insane. Insane.
You and I are on the same page.
But I was a little bit mad there. Sorry.
No, it's good. This is. I mean, like, that's why we have this show, right? This is what we attempt to offer to people that listen. Is we talk about sports critically. We don't take. We don't accept the established narrative around sports that they're just for entertainment, that they don't matter, because they do. They matter a lot, and it's just Clay Travis is. I mean, the idea that is leaning, but to me, it's like it's not leaning left. I think ESPN maybe is doing a better job of acknowledging the kind of stuff that you and I and others in our camp are acknowledging, right? That sports are this venue for reaffirming or questioning racial inequality or gender inequality or class inequality, right? It can be that place. To have these conversations. I mean, Bob Lee has been able to do it for a long time on his show on ESPN. But now I guess it's maybe bleeding into Sports Center.
I'll concede that there are people in the world who probably would rather consume sports as an apolitical or non-political thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's a lot of
that. Does not mean that's okay. That does not mean that those things aren't happening. Yeah, oftentimes it's easier to live your life and ignoring pressing political conversations, right? Or social conversations. That doesn't mean those things aren't happening. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be having those conversations. Right? That's the simplest response, right? I mean, I honestly don't even know what. And man, the bulk of these shows have always sort of been these sort of beyond sports sort of questions.
Yeah.
Or maybe deeper questions is a better metaphor. I don't know.
No, they have. You're right. Well, we'll end with that anger. So that's good. It's a good passion to start the week with. But thanks again, everybody, for listening.
Righteous
Brian,
indignation.
Righteous indignation. That is the best term right there. Take that, Google it, and you throw that into your repertoire. Remember, everybody, you can find us and rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. Just search Sports Nerds. Follow us on Facebook at Sports Nerds. You can also access our YouTube page via our Facebook page. It's on the left there. Just type YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube page. Email Brian and I at wearesportsnerds@gmail.com. Tell us that you subscribed and you have a Sports Nerds koozie coming your way. Brian, thanks for joining this morning.
Yeah, for sure, buddy.
All right, everybody, you enjoy your week, and whenever you listen to this,
I like this guy.
see ya.